Hi everyone, this is Dr. Zeus, and again, welcome back to the third week of our series on emotion and motivation. This is for a class at NAU, but if other people happen to hop on board, this information is good for anyone who's interested in understanding the relationship between emotions, thinking, motivation, and a host of other things. So let's get started. Anyway, we're at week 3, and our guiding questions for this week are, do all people feel the same things? And I've added one too, and that is, what is the relationship between thinking and feeling? So let's jump right on it. I went ahead and I've developed a template for each class now that helps to focus our thinking and help guide us in our inquiry about this. So let's get on that right now. I will go ahead and see if I can move it in myself. Oh, there we go. Perfect. And myself down to the bottom of the screen, and we'll go up to the top of our template for this week. What I'm going to do in the next few minutes is just to discuss this, to help clarify the questions, and help you go ahead and address them and do some exploration on this topic. So we are in week 3. As I said, for members of the class, please just download this template. I will attach it to my email to you, and paste it or compose directly into this document. Save it, of course, to your week 3 folder, and then select all and paste it back into the email and send it back to me. I'll be able to respond and grade it that way. Okay, and again, of course, if you have any questions, just email me directly at zeus@citizenzeus. Oops, wait, that's my personal email, so it's actually going to be zeus.yamianis@nau.edu. Okay, so let's get started. Basically, we're founding our exploration around these 2 central questions, and let's go ahead and look at them now. It's actually pretty straightforward this week. I'm going to have you view this video in which I explain and kind of outline and get you started on what I'm looking for, and also the academic readings in the video. I want you to access and download the week 3 folder, academic readings. I will go ahead and give you a short primer in this video about the readings and how they apply to the questions this week. And then view at least 30 minutes, that's right here, 30 minutes of the thinking and feeling video, and the link is provided there, and also to read chapter 2 of our Ekman sourcebook for this class. Again, that's Ekman, the second revised edition of Emotions Revealed. So let's get started. Basically, it's pretty straightforward this week. In terms of offering insights and questions on the discussion board, as always, I view this as a participation grade. And so I really want this to allow you to get into this topic. If you have a compelling instance or example that comes up in your life that you think is relevant to the class, you can share that and then respond to someone else, and I will give you the full 10 points. I see this more as a participation grade. I'm not trying to judge you. I'm trying to allow you to get into the material and make relationships to your life. If you're feeling a little bit more wanting to be directed, I've provided a suggested topic or question. Here it is. It's right down here. Describe an instance when you thought you were on the same page, feeling-wise, with another person, but found out you were not. What were the consequences? This could be if you had a crush on someone and you thought they were giving you signs and they didn't respond, or you thought they were giving you signals and it turned out they weren't. Or it could be that you were really happy with a work project and you thought other members of the group shared this, and you learned later that someone either gossiped behind your back, or there was an evaluation and it turned out not to be. And it could be the opposite. A lot of you are catastrophizers. You thought, oh God, that went horribly. That presentation went awful. And then all of a sudden you get this A on it and everyone's just oohing and awing over it. What a lot of these things do tell you a lot about your emotional and mental structure. Sometimes people raised in families that are really tough on them end up having an overly pessimistic view of their performance, and then vice versa, someone who's spoiled may have an overly inflated or optimistic view of their performance. So we really want to get into this topic of how our upbringing, how our sociocultural variables, our social context influences how we evaluate our emotions, right? And how we see them and even how we feel them. That's going to get into this topic again of how thinking and feeling relate to each other, but also how social context and our environmental variables um, influence our thoughts about our feelings and how we appraise our feelings, but also what we in fact experience emotionally. It's really a fascinating topic. Let's get started. I'm not going to try to spend too much time on this video. I want you guys to be able to explore and go after it. But again, post your initial discussion in the discussion board on in our class, and paste it here in this document you're going to send back to me, and I'll paste at least one of your other responses. You only have to put one. If you do more than one, feel free to paste those as well if you want to show me how much you're participating, but really you only have to have at least one, and you only have to paste one. So that's it. The discussion board question really is a real-life question applying this kind of feeling. Now let's go to the more sort of academically oriented, professionally oriented aspect of this, and that's the question of the week assignment. Do all people feel the same things, and what is the relationship between thought and feeling? Again, this is 300 to 500 words. You can go right at this. You don't have to impress me. You don't have to give me full bibliography. Just give me the little parentheses and where you got it out of the material. We already know which readings we're dealing with this week. So, and I'm going to be very targeted here. I don't want to waste your time, and I want to be able to get right at your understanding of the material and also how you are able to apply it to your life. That's the most important thing here. You won't remember these academic articles, but you will remember the insights that you generated from them, the discussion and the questions, and how you were able to apply it to your life. A lot of you are caring professionals, and this becomes extraordinarily important when it comes to gauging things like boundary issues between you and clients or people you're serving. It has to do with getting on the same page emotionally as other people, becoming empathetic and compassionate with them, being able to listen and understand their feelings from their own perspective and not simply your own sort of judgmental framework. So it's not like this is just an academic exercise. It really has to do with things that will help you in life and also in your profession. So again, let's get started. We're now right up here to, do all people feel the same things? Ekman in chapter 2 discusses that. And in fact, as I'm looking at the book right now here to the side, it's really only he asks and answers this question in the first basically 2 or 3 pages of the chapter. So definitely go to those to know what's going on here. That will sufficiently answer the question, but here's something more important, and here's at the very end of his chapter. That's going to help you professionally. So I encourage you to go further on with further reading because he brings up ways in which you can apply and understand feelings in a much more helpful way. I'll go ahead and just read it. This is on page 37, Ekman. He says, I have described 9 paths for accessing or turning on our emotions. The most common one is through the operation of auto-appraisers, the automatic appraising mechanisms. He's just saying that you have these unconscious programs that happens like when you hear a shout or a scream or it looks like you're going to get in a car accident, they go off. And those are the things that tend to be universal to everybody. No matter what culture, they're more automatic responses, basic survival, warning mechanisms. A second path begins with reflective appraisal that then clicks on the auto-appraiser. Again, this has to do with how your thoughts influence your feelings. You appraise the situation, and then that makes you feel something. So using thinking to generate a certain kind of emotion. The other ones are memory of a past emotional experience. Sometimes that can trigger an emotion. So a lot of these are emotional triggers. If you can understand the trigger, a lot of times you can change the trigger. The fourth one is imagination. Your brain, if you visualize something, oftentimes can't tell the difference between that actually happening and the visualization. Talking about a past emotional event is the fifth path. You're just talking about it. You can kind of relive it, and you can actually kind of produce some of the same emotions. Empathy is the sixth path. That's the big one in this class, what I call compassion. Others instructing us about what to be emotional about is the second path. Again, a lot of this has to do with parenting. Those who had tough love, how to, boys don't cry, all these sorts of things actually influence our ability to experience and access certain emotions. So, and then violation of social norms is an 8 eighth path. So another way to get at understanding triggers for emotion is if you actually violate a social norm, you're getting a certain consequence from other people's approval and perhaps punishment, or if you're going with it, maybe praise. So there is an influence around you socially, and that gets into some of our other questions. And finally, it says voluntarily assuming the appearance of emotion. They literally say actually smiling produces happiness. Literally, the physiological thing can influence your expression and experience of happiness. It's fascinating stuff. So please read chapter 2 and read it for enjoyment. And write in the margins and say, yeah, this is a great insight. Star it. Take control over your learning here. Be motivated, be enthusiastic and passionate about your learning here, and things will go much better. Okay, so let's go on into this question. How does social context influence emotion and emotional expression? I say here, refer to the Boyger and Mesquita academic article. Again, this article actually is a great article. This is Dr. Seuss's seal of approval. Okay, it's not full of jargon. It has great examples that you can relate to. It kind of shows you, it still is, I mean, obviously still academic article, but also it has a great link to your final project, and you have to cite 4 articles for your final project. This is a great one to cite. It has a lot to do with motivation, and it's fairly clear and easy to read, and you can make the connections. So I would definitely recommend starring this one to use in your final project if you so choose. Now I'm going to pause this video real quick, get up that actual article, and we'll go over the article a little, give you a little bit of a framework on it. Okay, here we go. I'll go over very briefly a couple of the articles we have. I haven't asked a specific question on them, but there's the Keltner, Haidt, and Chiodo article, and I can tell you what my bias is here. Social functionalism and the evolution of emotions. We have through the evolutionary psychology, which treats human beings more as mechanisms. This is more of a relic of past thinking. It's called modernism, where they believed in the early 1900s and through the mid-1900s that every human being could be seen as a mechanism. Our brains were the only thing that produced our thinking and feeling, and it was a causal stimulus. It was almost like we were a complicated computer. I'm not a great big fan of these, and I think largely they've been discredited by more recent studies, so I don't spend a lot of time on them. But basically, it says, will give you the reason why I'm a little bit, it drives me a little bit crazy. It says our purpose is, what is not like the others? Ants, bees, naked mole rats, chimpanzees, or human beings. Basically, it says the one that isn't like the others is not human, but chimpanzee up here, because humans, like the other species, are ultra social. And I'm like, ants equals humans? I'm like, up here, I'm like, the type of cooperation is very different. And it's like, I have no patience for that kind of, this is different. This isn't what you expect. Again, to give you a little idea about using an academic paper, here is the theme. We take for granted that emotions are products of evolution, though influenced considerably by cultural learning, and we suggest that emotion-related physiological, cognitive, and motivational mechanisms are best understood in the context of the functions they serve. So it's a functionalist approach, a highly mechanical, highly linear understanding. Drives me a little bit crazy. Like I said, more recent research has shown that this is a rather limited way of understanding it, not simply the best. We're moving, in some sense, moving on from that. Here's my critical challenge here. I said, okay, but they are not merely functional facilities because many emotions, especially appreciation of art, etc., serve no recognizable evolutionary function. Hello, what about those functions that don't serve evolution, okay? And again, so much of this is based upon all of our emotions and thoughts that are coming out of trying to serve an evolutionary or survival function. And they just don't explain certain things. So again, I have very little patience for them. Similarly, on this article, you'll see it, this primer also in your folder on that link. And you get the theme statement here. The reading concludes with our definition of emotion. An emotion is a mode of operation of the entire cognitive system caused by programs that structure interactions among different mechanisms so they can function harmoniously. And I'm just like, this is, again, a purely cognitive or mentalized view. There's not a lot of heart in it. It acts as if we're caused by programs, in order to create a certain kind of harmony, rather than the other way around, or desire or emotions for harmony, creating thought structures that organize society in ways that reduce conflict. And finally, where errors or the wrong moves could threaten survival, again, it's this whole kind of like all of our, even our intellect is driven by this sort of survival mentality and to a certain degree fear. I just don't buy this. I don't find it that helpful in being and constructively developing our understanding and application of emotions. So much better article is The Construction of Emotions and Interactions. It's a contrasting theory, rather than, as with the other two articles up here, again, pardon my scrawl, evolutionary demands, producing emotions that produce interactions, a very mechanistic, causal, linear way of doing things. It's quite the opposite. Interactions between us and other people create emotional dynamics, right? And then that creates thoughts and learning in which we deny or accept or develop certain emotions. So it's a much more rich and interactive notion. You notice the words in here that are very different: mutual versus linear, shaping versus causing, and interdependencies versus dependencies or independent. So I find this article to be very helpful in terms of that. In the question, I do ask you, what is this, or how do, let me see here, what's the actual, yes, how does social context influence emotion and emotional expression? In these first 2 pages, it really goes through. It gives great examples. It has three ways in which it does: the moment-to-moment interaction. Right there you see it. Down here there's relationships. And then finally it has sociocultural context. So if you can talk a little bit about those. Extra bonus if you can relate it to your life. I always like that. And again, you can be very succinct. You can just go at it. You can do a few sentences of this. 300 to 500 words is fine. If you're really getting into it and you go over the word count, that's fine too. I won't punish you for that. And again, here's another great example. Here's about, I think, college students talking about social anxiety. So again, highly applied example. That's on the 3rd page of this article. You don't have to do a lot of this. It ends up really working forward. You can just go ahead and go at the questions. You can go at the articles. I'm not looking for verbose. I'm not looking to be impressed. I'm looking for you to engage it and find ways to make helpful relationships with this and your life and work. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this out. Let me pause this and get out this. Okay, we're back to the questions again. So we have a good context from which to answer this second question: how does social context influence emotion and emotional expression? And again, I want to know you to apply this. So from your own life and perspective, what is the relationship between thought and feeling? How does thought shape feeling? How does feeling shape thought? This is actually extremely important. Again, think about it. Think about a nasty thought about another person or a beautiful thought about another person, and then see what it inspires in terms of your feeling. You can not, I guarantee you, not think of that nasty thought about someone and not experience a negative or disparaging emotion about that person. There's a very, very close link between thought and feeling, and many people have talked about this. Having positive thoughts, and that includes thoughts about yourself or feelings about yourself. Developing positive thinking, there's a whole line of things that does that. Now, it's not simply just sufficient to develop thoughts. You have to develop experiences, you have to have successes and so forth. But there is a direct link between thinking and feeling. If you think nasty about somebody in a nasty way about someone else, it's likely you're going to have a feeling that accompanies it, and vice versa. Now, it also goes the other way. Feelings affect thoughts. If you're feeling happy, if you start the day and say, this is a wonderful day, and you try to tap into those feelings of optimism or tap into those feelings of empathy for another person, that tends to get you to select actions and experiences or stimuli that reinforce that feeling. If you really have concentrate on having a good feeling toward other one, you start looking for the good things in them. If you have a really sort of bad feeling towards someone, you notice, that person's kind of creepy. You notice the things about their physical experience, and their eyes are too close set or something that reinforce that feeling. So using your thoughts to reinforce the feeling. So by understanding the relationship between thought and feeling, we actually have a lot more control, both in terms of the thinking that we have to create certain feelings and the feeling we have to create certain thinking, to manage our environment better, to have better relationships, to have a better understanding and relationship with ourselves. So that's why I put that question in there. What role does enthusiasm play in motivation to learn? You can just watch the video. It's fairly obvious. I'm not going to go over and explain that too much. It's a fascinating video. It shows how thoughts themselves and feelings themselves have actual weight. I recommend you watch the whole thing, but certainly watch at least the first 30 minutes of it. It is absolutely fascinating. It's must-see viewing. And then finally, how might you use this information to be more compassionate to yourself and others? Again, I want you to apply this to your life in the 4 C's. And the last of the 4 C's is compassion, as well as critical thinking, as well as creativity, as well as being capable, that is, understanding this material. And then finally, as always, I want you to ask one question or offer one insight from me so I can use it in my sort of Ask Dr. Seuss form of this, so we can extend the conversation beyond simply researching questions. And anyway, that pretty much does it for week 3. Again, if you have any questions, either message me on the board or write me an email directly. And I will see you next week. Bye.